Hello, and welcome to the Farmacy Seeds Network YouTube channel. This is the Sunday night All Things Natural net. This is an amateur radio net over the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Repeater. For those who always ask, this is not CB radio, this is amateur radio. You must have a Federal Communications Commission license to operate on these frequencies, but still, this is just a hobby thing. It's for fun and for community and that kind of stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get this net started. We'll see if anyone checks in tonight. Pretty sure we'll have one or two. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. The Sunday Night All Things Natural Net is an amateur radio net provided by the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club and dedicated to farming, gardening, ecology, and much more. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. This is KD2IIN Net Control looking for check-ins for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. Alright, so far the net recognizes KD2RFI, Bob, and KC2UVP, Mike. Let's start with the top of the list. KD2RFI, Bob, how are you this evening?
Doing good, CJ, doing good. Evidently, I'm one of the few that's not watching the soccer game tonight.
Hello, Smoking Joe. Right there with you. Not a fan of any sports on TV, to be honest. But glad to hear you're doing well. Let's roll on down to Mike, KC2UVP. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm all adverse to that. I love brutality and competition, but I also like a well laid out rule book, and good camaraderie, good hard work, but sports, it's an important function. I grew up on it, and I believe it instills some kind of camaraderie, but I think they advertise it. Back to you.
Very good, Mike. Well, everybody's got their own preferences, and I didn't play much sports growing up, so I don't have a big affinity for it, but I recognize that other people do, and yeah, I hear you. I feel like the Super Bowl is way, way overplayed, so to speak. But, whatever. If that's what people are into, by all means, that's why we live in a free country. We have the choice to do whatever we want to do. Alright, let's see if there's any further check-ins, and we'll roll back to the top list. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. If there's any further check-ins, please call now.
W2NDG. Evening, CJ.
The net recognizes W2NDG Neil. Good evening, Neil. How are you?
I'm okay. Just kind of enjoying the fire and hanging out tonight. And, I'm not a big sports ball fan either.
Very good. Fire sounds nice. Wish I was sitting near a fire right now myself. Alright, well, let's just make sure we didn't miss anybody here. If there's any other check-ins, there we go. Call sign now. Alright, we'll roll back to the top of the list. KD2RFI, Bob. How'd you make out with the bees? You get anywhere with them yet?
I'm sorry, CJ, I missed that. With the bees or the beans?
The bees, but if you have something else like beans you want to talk about, that's fine too.
No. The bees are all tucked in for the winter. I haven't really paid them much mind at this point. It's for the winter months, I figured less is more. As far as I'm not gonna poke and prod them too much. So I know I have one hive I lost, possibly one of my nucleus colonies. colonies. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's just judging by the number of bees I see laying in the snow outside the hive. I did notice several of the hives had quite a bit of activity the warmer days we had this past week, but other than that, that's about all I'm done with at this point. I am starting to collect material, and I'm really thinking about building some thicker bee boxes that we had, I think last week we had discussed those, as well as the bee log I'd like to put together, which, right now the deep snow has impeded my progress on that from getting that log out of the woods where it is.
Gotcha. Yeah, the snow is impeding my progress here as well. I actually haven't done any checks on the bees in a couple of weeks. We haven't had too many warm days where I've had a chance to even be around and have a look at them. I'm wondering how they're making out, but as you know, can't really go tearing them open in the cold weather, and I guess we got quite a cold snap ahead of us this week, so I suppose it is what it is. I want to come back and ask how you made out with your saw, but I guess we'll roll down the list here and then we'll come back around to you. Let's roll on down to KC2, UVP, Mike.
Yeah, all things natural. I was on Flint Mine Road out there in Coxsackie, and my guys were picking up really big chunks of flint. And I was looking for something that might have been handled by a man 30,000 years ago, and they said, well, there's no point coming out of this piece of stone. And all of a sudden, they started running, and they're running. I'm looking through the trees, I can hear them yelling and running. And I get aware, and I'm going like, where's the bear? And they stopped running. They didn't run far. And I went over to them, and we had discovered a bee's nest in a natural tree. And the one guy there said, hey, you guys want some comb? He was going to reach in and give us comb. And all we were doing was scavenging flint stone.
Thanks, Brent. Wow, that's a very bold move to go reaching your arm into a live beehive. I don't recommend it. I really like my bee suit and veil and gloves. I don't mind getting a sting here and there, but I definitely don't want hundreds or thousands of stings. That doesn't sound like fun to me. Anyway, let's roll on down to Neil, W2 and DG.
All right. I never have much to offer the bee conversation.
Thanks, Brent.
I'll bring up something else that was crossing my mind today.
She was. Hey, Consquash.
And CJ, you know that I'm always going in so many different directions at once that I don't want to add a whole lot more to my plate. But, as I've mentioned to you before, I wanted to have the ability to grow some stuff here. So I was thinking about growing some things that are low maintenance, high yield. And one of the things I was thinking about today, and I know it's an invasive plant, but I can plant it someplace where it won't matter too much. I was thinking about doing Jerusalem Artichoke, because that's definitely low maintenance and high yield. I wanted your thoughts on that.
I think that's a great idea. I have a patch of them here. I think I put in 7 about 4 or 5 years ago, and now that patch is, I don't know, probably 60 or 70 feet long by probably 30 or 40 feet wide. And I probably could live off that from, say, February through April when all the greens come on again. So I think that's a great one. I will caution you, and I know you're aware of it, but I'll caution you again anyway. They spread like crazy, so wherever you put them, expect that they're going to take over. The one exception to that rule is if you put them inside of an area where you can run around with a mower, you can keep that edge mowed back with a mower, and that's an easy way to kind of keep them in place. But I would also give a good 15 or 20 foot buffer, because they can put out quite a rhizome or runner root from them. So that'll be my 2 cents, and I'll put it back to you for further questions or comments.
That's fine. I was thinking of doing, some railroad ties or something like that. Putting them in a spot where I know that won't stop them from spreading, but at least it gives me a friendly. Surprised they're not more popular. Interesting. So then you can take it around again and expand on it further in the next round. I'm not sure. That's up to you. Yeah, that's just one of the things I was thinking of, and I'm trying to come up with some other ideas for things that would keep producing, some sort of perennial things, and then I can have a small raised bed with some other stuff that I can put in every year.
Thank you very much, Brent. Good to see you, my friend. All right, well, sounds good, and we'll definitely come back around to it. And yeah, I get it on the visual barrier. It's a good way to kind of keep track of, where the maze is coming from, so to speak. Let's see. One other thing. If you can bump your power up a little bit on the next trip through here, that would help. You got a little bit of scratch in there. Not bad, but just a little bit of bacon and eggs from time to time. All right, let's just see if there's any further check-ins, and then we'll roll back through the list. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. If there's any further check-ins, please call now.
This is KD2 KJU Jed West Hurley.
All right, the net recognizes KD2 KJU Jed. How you doing tonight, Jed?
I'm doing well. Sorry, I tried to let the repeater drop before, but I fumbled the old mic around. I'm watching the old Fools ball game on streaming right now. Just turned the radio on. Yeah, that's about it. For me so far, I figured I'd just check in now when I got the chance and get a feel for the net for next time around. With that, I'll send it back to UCJ, KD2KJU.
Sounds good, Jed. Glad you joined us, and we'll pick you up on the next trip around. All right, with that, we're down at the bottom of the list. We're going to roll back to the top to KD2 RFI Bob.
One of the things that says collecting material, I'm actually thinking about going horizontal hive, which is very similar to top bar.
Yep.
But, just using the Langstroth frames. So, that's something I was considering. I've been hearing good things about them, and I would love to hear your thoughts on them and, what you know about the horizontal hive, CJ, as far as possibly using them in this area.
I think the horizontal hive is a great idea. It's something I had thought about. The last I thought about it, I didn't have the money to design, build, and complete that project. But if you want to see a good horizontal hive and assessment of a horizontal hive with the Langstroth frames in it, go to Frederick Dunn's channel. It's just Frederick Dunn on YouTube. And he's got a horizontal hive that he built, very well built, very nice hive and system. And he opens it up and goes through it and shares the pros and cons and all that kind of stuff. So I would say that's a great idea. And I have to say, I was a little apprehensive about even the top bar hive, but after having seen how that works this season, I think that is a great design, very simplistic, and it lets the bees do what they do best. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll put it back to you for further question or comment. KD2,
Yeah, definitely. The top bar hives I really like. My personal weak point with it is I'm unable to encourage the bees to build the proper direction. So instead of building comb along 1 bar, I get comb along about 4 bars. They seem to like them 30 to 45 degree angles in there. I'm kind of guessing the queen kind of senses what I would like them to do, and
goes against
like all my kids I've raised, simply tell me no and find a better way to do it.
Oh man, can I relate to that? Have you tried wax starter strips on those?
Some
Good to see you.
rudimentary ones, yes, I have. I got
that's probably a good idea, and I'd be curious to see maybe a video or pictures of that where they went on 45s on you. But I can relate to that too. I mean, I had them do that in one of the Langstroth hives. Well, you met Joe last week on the radio here, and one of the hives that I got from him didn't have full frames, and it had basically the top of a frame as a starter strip. And for some reason, they did a similar thing to that with the 45-degree thing. And I can share your frustration because it makes it really hard as a beekeeper to keep that neat and organized and nice. But, you know, what can you do? All right, well, we'll come back around to this. We'll roll on down to KC2 UVP, Mike.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, CJ, for
Doing good,
moderating. There's a lot of topics going on here. I love my bees. I let them be. If I could help them, I would. About plants, about the Jerusalem Artichoke. This is just a throw pitch. I heard earlier that if you keep a short grooming around an invasive plant, they won't spread. But then there's a root system that will be contained in that sense. And a raised bed doesn't contain a root, and bees, God bless, forever bees. Back to you, CJ.
Wow, -30. No thanks. Oh, yeah, very good, Mike. That is true with most invasive species, but I know a couple like Jerusalem artichokes and also Japanese knotweed. I think, I'm not so sure on the distance artichokes will go, but I would say at least 10 or 15 feet would not be a problem for them. The Japanese knotweed, I understand, they can actually shoot runners out about 35 feet that you won't even see above ground. So you just have to be careful that you put spacing in far enough, or alternatively, you just don't care if they spread all over the place. Of course, if you have big farm equipment, you can always go back and brush hog frequently, and eventually you'll beat them back. But yeah, definitely a tricky balance there. But hey, that's working with ecosystems. All right, let's roll on down to Neil, W2NDG. This is KD2 IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural. Hey, Bill. Signal seems to be better, less scratch in there, a little bit, I'd say you're probably 90% DFQ.
Right, I'll try not to move. I'm hanging out in the living room. And I certainly have plenty of Japanese knotweed here too. Or is it,
that's funny,
I'm trying to think of the other one.
Yeah.
Both have similar characteristics. Yeah, I think that's the one with the staining purple berries, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I know when I've let those get out of hand and mowed here, you end up spreading the seeds all over, and then they take off. And man, do they have a deep, extensive, and hard to eradicate root system. Still a little bit of noise on your signal there, but I don't think it's so much noise as it is low audio. You want to give that one more shot?
I'll lean in a little more towards the cat. Maybe she'll help.
The kitty power is cutting through the QRN. Anyway, very good. Well, let's roll on down to Jed, KD2, KJU.
I guess actually one question that's been on my mind for a little bit is that I just had my front yard dug up and new septic put in and everything, and I'm really thinking about planting clover instead of grass. Mowing is not a problem. I have a mower here. I mow lawns during the summer. I just kind of like clover. Lavender was another thing that I was planning on planting instead of a lawn. was wondering if you knew about anything else that might be, something that doesn't grow too high. Lavender seems like probably the best thing, even better than clover, because I don't think it'll get too high. I'm just kind of seeing if there's anything else out there that you've heard of.
That's what I was going to say.
Like that. I can mow whenever I want, whenever I get sick of looking at it, but grass doesn't do anything for me. So, I figured I'd play around with something else. Back to you, CJ. KD2KJU.
KD2 control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. Yeah, I would say go with clover, and I would say more specifically white clover. It stays fairly short, about 6 to 8 inches tall, produces tons of flowers. It'll self-reseed, is very resilient, it's a nitrogen fixer, and more importantly, it is an excellent nectar source for the bees, as well as pollen, I believe. So I would go with clover. Lavender is also awesome, but lavender is a little bit trickier to get started, and it grows significantly taller than clover. Actually, lavender can get quite tall. So I would say if you want basically a maintenance-free lawn that's great for the pollinators, fixes nitrogen and builds soil, white clover is probably the one to go with. I'm trying to think, I'm sure there's other stuff you could mix that with, but off the top of my head I don't have any. I'll put it back to you briefly, and then we'll do another opportunity for check-ins. That's awesome, Oliver.
All right, that's interesting. I had no idea that lavender actually gets taller. I mow a graveyard during the summer, and the lavender's everywhere. And it's actually, I don't want to call it a joy to mow, but it never seems to. It knows its place. It just kind of stays there. It doesn't act like too much of a weed. I had honestly assumed that clover would be the one that would, get more out of control. All right, that's interesting. And I guess the other thing is that I have some clover popping up that I've been trying to promote around my yard for a while, and I get purplish and white clover. Are they two totally different things, or are they kind of like? I know my hydrangea, if it's lacking something, or if it needs, it'll change color. Is it something like that, or that's just the how it is? Back to you, KD2KJU.
Well, there's actually multiple different types of clover. There's white clover, there's red clover, there's crimson clover, and sweet clover, and there's probably others. The ones you're talking about are probably white and red clover. Red clover grows much taller, and it doesn't form quite as much of a green mat on the ground as the white clover. And that's part of why I recommend the white clover, because that will grow and look a lot like a lawn. It's just that it will flower at about 6 or 8 inches high, and it's an excellent source for the bees for nectar and pollen. And it's a little easier to manage if you don't mow it. Once it spreads in thick, it still will only grow like 6 or 8 inches tall. So you have like a tall, thick lawn, but you won't have this overgrown lawn. The red clover tends to grow much taller, but it takes much longer to do so. Both of those are perennial, so once you get them going, they'll stick around. And if you time your mowing correctly on white clover, and you wait until it flowers and the flower goes by and then mow it, what you're doing is reseeding it, and that forms a really nice thick mat. If you go back and look at my videos on that on my channel, you'll see a spot in the back here where I did that on a rifle range, and man, it really filled in nice with clover. And I've done that here around the farm more so as time's going on, and it forms a great mat, and it's easy to knock out if you're tilling and planting, that kind of thing. It's not quite as tough to beat out as weeds, so that's what I'd recommend. Sweet clover is another one. I'll drop for a sec. Sweet clover is also a perennial. It should be planted late summer, basically, and it'll freeze out over the winter. It'll look like it died, and then in the spring it'll come back, and it'll grow about 6 to 8 feet tall. It's one of the higher biomass producers, and it is also one of the best known nectar sources for honeybees. But that one obviously is not so much lawn oriented; it's much more field lawn oriented. So let's just take a pause here and see if there's any further check-ins. This is KD2 IIN Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. Looking for any further check-ins, please call now. Alright, no further check-ins recognized at this time. I just want to read a comment here from Olin Thorson in the YouTube stream chat. He says in Minnesota they are starting a program where they will pay you to plant clover and other native plants instead of grass to help the bees. He also goes on to say, I don't spread my lawn with chemicals or anything. I just let the clover and dandelions grow rampant. And that's that for now. My lemongrass marigold will grow out and keep the snakes off my property. Oh, interesting. Cool. All right, with that, we're going to roll back to the top of the list to KD2 RFI.
Yeah, definitely. See, I agree with that fully. My lawn is actually, mostly clover and dandelions. And springtime when dandelions are popping, I'm really not touching it for as long as possible. I try and let the dandelions flower right out and even go to seed if they need to. If I can wait that long for a lawn, I just let it grow and grow and, let it do what it does. So, again, I'm 1,200 feet off the road. Nobody sees my house and my lifestyle. I'm really not worried about having a manicured lawn. I will start leveling the lawn a little bit because it's a lot of ruts and dips and everything else. I would like something level. Sloped is fine, but as long as it's flat. I think it's level.
Yes, you can eat dandelion. You can make an excellent wine with it too.
I'm not looking for a manicured lawn. I just don't want to be, bouncing around the lawn or dipping and weaving when I'm mowing it. But definitely, that's good. Boy, there's something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was.
The wine.
I know you asked about the chainsaw, which isn't quite fall within the strict guidelines of the net, but I just ordered. I texted my dealer today actually and ordered some oil lines because the saw that I rebuilt does have some oil leaks. The carburetor wrenches came in and I reset the carburetors to the factory limits, which is super important, especially if you now have a new cylinder and piston in it, so that way I don't blow it up again. So waste all that money. But yeah, I think that's the last thing I got to do is fix a couple oil leaks and we'll be good to go. So with that, I'll send it back to you, CJ. KD2 RFI, back to net.
This is KD2 and control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. Very good, Bob. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear you got that thing sorted out. I know that was sort of a nightmare you stepped into there, but I'm glad it's going to work out as a nice saw for you because, man, that was a lot deeper into rebuilds than I'm sure you were hoping to go. But it will be a nice machine when you're all said and done. All right, let's roll on down to KC2 UVP. Mike.
Yeah, I got a Rancher 455, and I'm just going to throw this out real quick about addiction and invasion. Invasiveness is a lot like addiction. I've got my own demons. I'm addicted. I don't go to meetings, but I'm an alcoholic. I smoke cigarettes, but I'm not dead yet. I work hard, but I don't work. So anyways, thank you, CJ. Thank you, everybody, for your ears. KC2 UVP 73 clear.
All right, very good, Michael. I wish you well with all those issues, and I hope you'll take care of yourself better. But I can relate to having addictions and dealing with your own demons. So anyway, 7-3s, thank you for checking into the net. Always appreciate it. Let's roll on down to W2NDG. Neil.
All right. Well, further heading in the direction of the plants, I'm going to just try to cut back the poke this year as best as I can. I know where it is, and the stalks remain, so just try to hack it back and keep it from coming. So we're thinking about what else to put in that would just continue to produce. And I was thinking put an asparagus batch in this spring. As you know how to do it. I did one before years ago, and my dad had one. I know it takes a few years before you get anything out of it, but once it starts producing, it keeps producing. soil's like here. I'm going to find out, I guess. But depending on what the soil's like, I might need to mix some sand in and get prepared for something like asparagus. But I'm thinking about what else that would be similar to those things. Something that I can put in, leave alone. Also, the clover discussion is interesting. I know clover from the edible side, and red clover, which, when you see it, you think it's a misnomer because it's not red, makes an awesome tea. And the sweet clover has like a vanilla scent, and you can use it for things like that. I'm wondering if it has a similar effect on the honey. If you have mostly sweet clover, does it have an effect on the flavor of the honey like that?
Very good. Yes, red clover is excellent in a tea, and also actually it's an excellent smoke if you want to substitute for cigarettes or you want some sort of an herbal smoke. That's one I've actually tried. I liked it very much. And let's see, the sweet clover, yeah, you definitely would have an effect on the honey. In fact, any variation in your flower will give you an entirely different tasting honey. So depending on what the bees are collecting, you can end up with some really interesting stuff. I think the one I like most is what's called wildflower honey. It's actually a mix of multiple wildflowers, and it gets this really like fruity, oh man, it's hard to even describe it, but it's just incredible stuff. I know Kylie actually picked some wildflower honey up last week or the week before, and she was putting it in her coffee, and she was amazed with the flavor. So that's definitely a favorite of mine. I have not personally actually tried sweet clover. I actually had tried cover cropping with sweet clover year before last and had limited success in germination with it. So I replanted this last year, and it should be coming up this year. Of course, I won't be here, but someone else will be here who will take in charge of the bees, and or at least I think they will. And if that happens, I might get to taste or try that honey at some point in the future anyway. But yeah, excellent stuff. All right, let's roll on down to Jed, KD2, KJU.
Question.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Just quick and short, what is the difference between raw honey and anything else I see on the shelf?
Raw honey would not be heat processed, so it retains a lot more of the medicinal properties, whereas most commercial honey is heat processed to separate the wax from the honey and that sort of stuff, and it reduces some of the more volatile organic compounds that are in honey.
Thank you, CJ. I want to go back to the 73 and goodnight thing, but I had to ask that question because you guys are the answer people.
All right, well, thanks, Mike. And yeah, big difference in flavor, big difference in quality, especially as it relates to medicine. Anyway, have a great evening, and we'll roll on down to Jed, KD2, KJU.
All right, thanks, CJ.
Japanese knotweed's a good one.
Yeah, with this whole pandemic thing, I've definitely been a little bit ahead of the curve with my masks, I guess you could say. I just always called them head wraps. But I've always worn them, well, not always, but for the last, I don't know, I'd say at least 4 years, I've worn something around my face just because when you're mowing, you smell the evil lawn doctor smell.
Yes.
When they've been there desecrating the lawn before you.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. They claim it's organic, but I've always, for years I've just thrown something up in front of my face for that. And I believe that their stuff actually gets rid of clovers and dandelions, as I'm sure it gets rid of dandelions. So I'm never happy to see anything with a lawn doctor truck or anything like that any place I mow, because I'm kicking all that stuff up and breathing it in, whatever they put on the ground.
Wow, oh, I didn't realize that.
You know, and the signs, you used to be able to run over the signs with minimum, they would disappear. Now, the paper that they use makes it into confetti. I kind of have I don't know, hatred's a strong word, but I really, really dislike Lawn Doctor. And I'm guessing that a lot of the organic people might feel the same way. But with that, I will send it back to Net Control. This is KD2KJU.
All right, very good, Jadriel. I share that sentiment as well. I have heard that there is a way to, there's an organic method of controlling weeds. I don't know what the constituents in that are specifically, but I've heard that's possible. But I know what you're talking about. I've been through the neighborhoods and seen the the pesticide signs out all over the place, and that just makes me sick. People are growing a lawn that they pay to mow and pay to maintain, and then going to the store and buying food, and it's a very unnatural system and a very high lack of diversity, shall we say. I do have a comment here from YouTube from Olin Thorson. It says, keep in mind too that processed honey can contain up to 40% maltodextrin and still be labeled as honey by FDA guidelines. It says, I know this firsthand through work. It's mostly honey that has been spray dried to be used as honey flavoring has 40% maltodextrin, but the label still says honey. So interesting, I was not aware of that, but yeah, go for a local honey producer, get raw honey from a local small hive or a local small producer. Is my 2 cents on that. But I share your sentiments there, Jeb. All right, let's just do one last opportunity for check-ins here before we roll back through the list. This is KD2IIN Net Control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Net. Any further check-ins, please call them out.
W2RWS, Rob in Pine Plains.
The net recognized W2RWS. Rob, how are you this evening?
Good evening. We got restless with the game. I don't have any sports genes in my body. I had it checked by the hospital. So nothing much is going on here. I flipped on the radio and there you were. So I thought, what the heck, I'd say hi.
Very good. Well, glad you joined us. And well, I hope you're staying warm out there in Pine Plains and dodging the snowflakes as they come along.
Yeah, it's supposed to go down to 9, I thought. Maybe tonight, or was that tomorrow night? Not quite sure. Got a question about my avocados. It seems very rare, but I've been eating a lot of avocados because it's a good source of protein, according to a nutritionist. And I was trying to stay away from eggs because of the cholesterol. Anyway, I started growing them. I think I mentioned it. And I actually got 2 out of 50 that shot up with 2 different stalks out of 1 seed. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Very interesting. I think I've started avocados maybe 1 or 2 times in my life, and I was a kid when I did. The one I have here I know came from seeds that were started from avocado, but all I know is that thing just grows like crazy every time I water it or prune it back. Other than that, I don't know much about them, and even despite how big that tree has gotten and how much nutrition it's had and foliar feeds, I have yet to see any actual avocados produced on it. There was a job I did a few years back in Germantown where a lady had small avocado trees and planters, and the one actually had a little tiny avocado growing on it. I don't think it got very big, but it was cool to see it at least producing.
That's interesting. No, I think it takes 8 years or something, and mine are just this year. I put them all in one pot, 5 of them in one planter. It looks kind of cool. They do grow. I wanted to ask you, should I trim them back? My wife said that if you nip off the new shoots, it starts to spread and makes it a thicker plant.
You can. I don't know specifics on pruning avocados, but any plant that you trim the top off of, yeah, it'll spawn new root growth. And the main reason behind that is there's 2 primary hormones in plants. There are cytokines and auxins, and one is a shoot and shoot and tip growing hormone, and the other is like a root hormone. And so those are perpetually like antagonizing each other in balance. And so when you clip back, you change that hormone balance. That causes a huge flush in root growth. And then later on, as a response to that, because the hormone balance goes out, comes back and does a big shoot growth. So you can do that. I don't know much else beyond that. I also know avocados are very abnormal as far as flowering and fruiting, even in California where they grow them, and other warm places on the planet. They don't necessarily flower every year the same time of year. There's I forget what the whole thing is, but they're kind of inconsistent in that way.
Well, that's interesting. You mentioned that. I've got some black locust trees that I cut down here. Most of them looked dead to me, but they're late bloomers, and they were not in great shape. And all of a sudden, the next year, oh my God, they're sprouting hundreds of sprouts along the stump. I was going to cut them back until we had the snow, but I thought the winter might be a good time to really get rid of them and cut them back.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to have to get the whole stump out probably. I should note the black locust is also a legume. It's a nitrogen fixer, so you might not want to be so hasty getting rid of those. But I guess depends on where they are and what sort of hassle they present otherwise. Anyway, let's roll back up to the top of the list here. We'll go back up to KD2 RFI. This is KD2 in control.
KD2 RFI. Yeah, not a lot more to add there, CJ. Definitely, I agree with your sentiment. I was going to bring it up about buying honey locally. You go to the stores and see it on the shelf. You have no idea where it's coming from. There've been many cases of barrels of honey from overseas, and when it's analyzed, it looks like honey, it tastes like honey, it appears to be honey, but there's no pollen in it. So there's really no real proof that it's honey, but they're still bottling it and telling you it's honey. So I definitely recommend everybody find somebody locally in your area, a local beekeeper, and that way you know where you're getting. And anybody questions where my honey comes from, I'm more than happy to let them down and show them. So I get people that buy from me and live quite a ways away, and I tell them all the time, just find somebody locally, and it's going to be better for their allergies, and as long as they're within their general geographic location for plants, and depending on what the bees are collecting from, the closer to where you spend 80% of your time, 90% of your time, the better off you'll be. I do have somebody that swears by local honey, and they're I think about a half mile up the road from me, and they buy a year's supply of what they need and take a teaspoon of it every day, and they absolutely swear by it, the health benefits. So if you look into it, the propolis honey set, I think her name is, I can't remember
Just
her
did a
first
thing
name,
on
but the honey
Kingston.
set channel. She just did a thing on propolis and something with liquor, mixing with liquor.
Thanks, Alan.
And,
Appreciate that.
making like a preventive medicine out of it. So it's neat. It's just absolutely amazing things you can do with it. But definitely, I'll be the first one to tell you, stay away from store-bought honey, and definitely buy local honey. Whenever you can, as close to where you live as possible. With that, I'm going to go in and check and see what the scores on that soccer game that I heard happened tonight. And not to confuse anybody, I absolutely love football. I just don't like the politics being played on it on my dime, so I'm not happy with that. And there's a couple other reasons too. The rule changes I can't handle either, but that's why I don't watch it. And the fact that I don't have a TV, that's a big deterrent too. So, all right. Anyway, I wish everyone 7-3. I'm gonna roll over and start thinking about going back to the working world tomorrow. Definitely not looking forward to that. KD2 R5, that's that.
All right, very good, Bob, and I completely agree with you. I share that sentiment as well. Always get the most local honey you can in raw form, and is it Haley or Kaylee from the Honeystead, just did a video on using propolis and making a tincture. And if people haven't seen that, they should go check that out as well. I hope you have a great evening. I hope your favorite soccer TV celebrity wins, or celebrities win. And I hope you have a good evening. Hope your work week goes fast and you get back to the weekend on another glass of bourbon. 7-3's Bob. Let's roll on down to W2NDG, Neil. Hey YT, what's going on, dude?
All right, well, the cat left, so I'm not sure if I can be Arthur enhancement of the cat.
I'm sorry, what about the cat?
I said the cat left, so I don't know if I have the cat RF enhancement working.
You're sounding decent, so go ahead.
All right, well, not too much else to say. Rob, I've grown avocados and mangoes, which are relatively difficult. A nice little mango tree going, and accidentally killed it when we were moving one time, because they can't tolerate anything under about 50 degrees. You have to be careful with them. And yes,
Thanks, YT.
Even after 8 years, next to impossible to get a sprouted avocado tree to produce fruit around here. Really difficult. There are books written on growing things from produce, different things that you can do. That's also something I wouldn't mind experimenting with. We do have a room in the basement here where we've set up some grow lights for some of the plants that the cats shouldn't be around, and some of the things we really didn't have any other place to put. So we have a giant aloe that Jill grew from the seed, and a couple other things down there. But it's a good spot to experiment with things like that. See if I can sprout some citrus or anything else. As far as what to put here, I drop a tree or two in that produces something. An oak tree I need to get rid of at some point. I might replace it with a redbud, one of my favorites, and I can see putting in maybe some sort of small, I know they make like apple trees and pear trees and things like that that are actually designed to produce fruit easily without having a million other trees around. But we'll see. I'm sure I can come up with something. I've got plenty of time. That's all I know. W2NDG. Everybody have a good night. Back to you, CJ.
This is KD2 IIN Net Control for the Sunday night, all things natural net. Very good, Neil. Yeah, I love the red buds too. They are beautiful. One other thing I might suggest is raspberry, more specifically Nova raspberry. That's one I have here, and if I get a chance to dig one up for you before I leave this spring, or maybe when I come back in the future, I'd be glad to share some of those with you. They're excellent producer, excellent berry, very prolific, and very low maintenance. Also, blueberries are nice, but I would definitely do multiple varieties because you'll dramatically improve the yield on doing that. Anyway, thanks for joining the net. I hope you have a great evening, and I'm sure we'll catch you somewhere throughout the week. With that, let's roll on down to KD2, KJU, Jed.
Thanks, CJ. Yeah, I did just hear aloe mentioned.
Aloe, I meant to mention
I
that.
never thought about growing that from a seed. But I have two German Shepherds here that are have no idea how large they are.
Good night, Olin. Thanks for coming in.
And I
Appreciate your support.
replanted this aloe, I don't know, I think sometime last year. They absolutely slammed it, knocked it over and everything like that. And now this aloe is doing the best out of all of my aloe plants. I've split them up over the years into different pots. But it was smaller, smaller break-offs. I'm not exactly sure what to call them. But this was my biggest one, and I could not believe how short the root system was. I was in disbelief. I dug through the bottom. I basically dug the thing out. I was like, oh man, this thing, the roots rotted in here? No, there were just no root. It was kind of like a bonsai. I was completely confused by that, and I put it in a huge pot because I thought it was a big plant. Is this thing dying or dead, or is that how? I'm sure I could Google this, but I kind of just this happened the other day, so it's kind of on my mind now. Is aloe really that short of a plant with its root base? Back to you.
Yeah, a few things about aloe. They're very resilient, and they're sort of into. They like to be abused, to put it that way. The more you prune them off, the more they grow back, the more prolific they grow back, and yes, they have a very short root system where if you go to dig it up, you almost would think there isn't a root system there. So yeah, that's consistent with aloe. Anyway, let's roll on down to Rob, W2RWS, your final comments for the net.
That's interesting. I have an aloe, and it didn't spring any offsprings yet, and I don't know what I need to do to make it do that. But my friend who gave me this one has a huge one, and it's got tons of little shoots all over it. And I don't know how to propagate that. And I've got just the opposite with the dog. I've got a greyhound here who is so gentle. I mean, he watches where he goes when he backs up. He's just amazing, not rambunctious at all. He's just really cool.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I have a gigantic aloe here in the greenhouse. Started out as one little shoot, and it got so massive that it dumped over the planter it was in, and I finally just relented, left it on the floor, and put some soil over its roots, and I've let it grow out there. I probably will just leave it behind as I move out of here. And someone else will care for it, love it, and propagate it. Anyway, that brings us to the bottom of the list, and I got to wrap this net up here because I have other obligations, so I'm going to roll on out and close it up. Before I do so, let me do some announcements here.
A comment.
Go ahead.
If you're going anywhere and you got a plant sale, let us know.
All right, I will do that. I'm still working out some sort of a deal here. I'm moving out to Vancouver Island, British Columbia fairly soon, probably end of March, maybe a little bit after that, but we'll see. But I will keep you in mind, and I'm sure we can hook you up with an aloe. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up now. Announcements. So every day, 8:35 a.m. and 6:30 p.m., the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club here on this repeater runs a daily net, just sort of a group check-in for local people. And let's see, Thursday nights is the net at 8 p.m. That's the Thursday night net run by Dave, K2JLV. That's an amateur radio related net. Talk about amateur radio, HF antennas, DMR radio, and all sorts of other technical stuff. Always excellent participation and conversation on that. I encourage you to check that out as well. Of course, tonight's net is the Sunday Night All Things Natural net. This net will no longer be operating after February 28th as the Sunday Night All Things Natural net. I believe Neil, W2NDG, whom you've heard earlier, will be taking that over as either a maker or a science and technology type net. So as this net transitions over, I hope I encourage you to support, follow, and engage with the net as Neil takes it over, assuming that does happen. I don't think that's set in concrete yet, but definitely sounds like it's going to happen. So that closes announcements. And this has been a session of the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net here on the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Repeater, courtesy of the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club. That's OMARC. This is the 146.805 megahertz repeater. If you want to find out more about our club, you can always visit our website at www.omarcclub.org. That's whiskey, Oscar, Mike, Alpha, Romeo, Charlie, Lima, Uniform, Bravo, Oscar, Romeo, Golf. Thanks to everyone who participated. It was another great conversation. Everyone have a great evening and a great week, and stay warm in this cold snap we got coming up. With that, 7-3s, KD2IIN will be clear. And thank you everyone for participating in chat and watching here on YouTube. Greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to roll us out to the break.
TJ, and good luck with moving. Although
Hey, maybe we like with the thick. Oh, and I've got not reverb, but yeah, kind of reverb echo. Yeah. Maybe like I don't know. It would be cool to do like a science show or something. Yeah. Hot mic. I can still hear myself echo. I feel like it's mine. It's still okay. I don't know how weird. I'm gonna put myself on mute until you figure it out. Why don't you end the call? I'll call you back. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for letting us know that. Yeah. Before things slipped out. I know. I don't know. It just definitely could have gone. Yeah. Yeah. Good thing I wasn't broadcasting from earlier today. I don't trust Skype now.